I hope this week is starting off with a wonderful blend of energies that include both the energies of love all around us and those experiences that we look forward to each and every day. So today I want to start off by saying thank you to New Reality TV and newrealitytv.com. You will be amazed at the plethora of perspectives that are available there on New Reality TV. So I hope you will join us and be a part of it. Most importantly, starting this weekend, a wonderful summit that promises enlightenment of just a plethora of perspectives will be available this weekend for the Rise Beyond Summit. Online, you can attend from your home, and it offers speakers from all of the different content from many different content creators here at New Reality. And they offer this enlightenment that I think will be utterly amazing, including yours truly, whom will appear on Sunday morning to offer hopefully some intellect and wisdom about our perspectives. So I hope that you can join us. Newrealitytv.com. There you will find the link to register. Make sure you get registered, and we will see you there. Ultimately, I want to also say, if you can, please visit my website, northwhispers.com. There you can find our friends, and more importantly, a link for my coaching where I can hopefully offer you an ear and some wisdom that has been given to me throughout the years, and hopefully help you step forward through the challenges that you may have in your life, right? So visit northwhispers.com and or northwhispers.com/coaching. So those websites are available all the time. So check those out and you'll be on your way. Finally, I want to say, if you can, you have some extra coinage, by all means, stop by the tip jar and support the stream. I can always appreciate and certainly use those donations. Well, if you haven't already, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. And let's get talking about Wooten and what Wooten did. Now, firstly and foremost, who is Wooten? Well, Wooten is Wooten. They're one and the same. Wooten was how he was referred to when, before really the Danes moved north into what is today the Jutland of Denmark. Before that, they were Germanic tribes that had kind of migrated north, and so they were in the northeast territory of what is today Germany. So just south of the Elbe River. Now, ultimately, they would go on to migrate over the Elbe and walk into it was really called, in those days, it was the Cimbric Peninsula. Cimbric because the Cimbri people were there before, and they essentially migrated south to ultimately what would become Italy area. But in those days, of course, when they kind of migrated out, my tribes, particularly the main tribes, which I am part of, the main Germanic tribe, the Danes, would migrate north and essentially march into what is the Jutland of Denmark today, which is really what Denmark means, March of the Danes. My family, for many generations, have settled along the northern coast of the Jutland of Denmark in a town, in an area called Bjerby. Bjerby, of course, Bjerby Son, and in that area, of course, so about 6 kilometers from the north shore of the Jutland of Denmark. So that's kind of where my family is from. My family hails from, and when the tribes migrated north from Germania at the time and um, migrated north into Denmark, what it would become Denmark, we see an evolution of Wotan, and Wotan would become Othin. Now, when Wotan was being recognized by the Germanic tribes, he he was not what Othin would go on to become. Othin would go on to become, of course, the chieftain and the kind of the supreme god of certainly the Aesir, um, but of the, particularly of the Norse legends and lore. Wotan would be kind of equal to Tyr, Tyr being the god of law and justice. Uh, they were kind of almost peers, unlike we see in the Denmark representation of Othin, where he was certainly kind of the man in charge, if you will. Um, so we see an evolution of him. Now, there are many stories about Wotan or slash Othin. Um, and one of the primary ones that always resonates with me personally is, of course, his visit to the Well of Erd. Now, Othin would travel throughout the land. He was constantly always looking and learning and experiencing many different facets of life in both physical and spiritual life. And we find him many times using disguises. Um, and he would be the traveler, the All Father, and of course the warrior king god of the Norse. My favorite, like I say, my favorite stories that's told to me by my ancestors was Othin, in his quest for wisdom, traveled all around and located the Well of Erd. Now, the Well of Erd, of course, being one of the three roots of Yggdrasil, the center tree of life, right? So, tree comes down and it has three major roots, and each of those roots, because of the size of Yggdrasil, each of those three roots would have wells, right, at the roots, and these wells would then kind of provide the exchange between water for Yggdrasil to drink and a place to reflect all the experiences within Yggdrasil. Odin would go and trade one of his physical eyes that he may drink from this well. Now, what was he drinking? Just water? No, I don't think so. My great grandparents described this drink from the Well of Erd as a absorption of all the experiences that were reflected in the Well of Erd from the root of Yggdrasil. My great grandfather would go on to explain that all of life throughout all the realms, all nine realms connect all the individual life forms, the blades of grass, the trees, the everything, animals, and certainly humans, all connect through our chakra to a branch of Yggdrasil. And then our experiences pass through a filtering in our minds, wind up in our spiritual brain, which is then connected through our chakra to the branch of Yggdrasil. So these experiences that we have are go through our eyes, through our emotional filters, and then through our spiritual brain into Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil then transports that that experience over the branch to the trunk and down to the root, where it is then reflected in the pool of the wells that are at each root. This makes so much sense. If you think about it, if you really think about it, and you say, okay, how do how does the spiritual realm, how do the gods know of my exploits, of what I'm doing? We interpret what we do, what we see, what we experience, everything about our reality gets translated through our eyes, through these emotional filters into our brain. Our brain then stores it in memory, and then when we sleep or when we just daydream, drift off into kind of that happy place, we find our consciousness slipping back, touching the spiritual brain and the memories, and those memories are then your interpreted experience that's stored in memory is then connected to our spiritual brain through our chakra, our crown chakra, out into the branch of Yggdrasil, where it goes all the way back to the trunk and all the way down into these wells. Now, this is, of course, how the Fates, or the Norner sisters, depending on who you talk to, how the Norner sisters kept track of things happening on Earth, or certainly on Midgard, what they referred to as Midgard. And it afforded the youngest of the three sisters, Verdandi, and it allowed her to sew a tapestry of our responses to the experiences that we had. So now she has a visual of your experience from your perspective, and then she's going to sew that into your tapestry. Now, the tapestry, as you know, is sewn throughout your lifetime, throughout your physical lifetime. And then when we pass from this physical form, we visit with Skull. And Skull, the middle sister, of course, evaluates your life based on the tapestry that Verdandi has sewn. We then look at that and say, okay, based on all of these things and how you responded to those things in your life, your physical lifetime, is which hole you'll reside in until Ragnarok, of course, Armageddon, whichever you choose to use. This really helps us understand how experiences, relational experiences with intellect, form wisdom. So when Othin, who sought wisdom everywhere he went, when Othin wanted to build a wisdom beyond wisdom, what's the best way to do that? Well, the best way to do that is to have as many experiences as you can. So, going back to teachings now, we can say when we have an experience and we have a very, very limited view of that experience, we can't really effectively build wisdom to it because it's very limited. We only have one perspective. When we have an experience and we begin to gather other perspectives, now we're beginning to broaden our view and increase our wisdom. Okay, so I know by the words that the spirits have given me, that it is our experiences that allows us to construct our wisdom. All right, so super, super important that we gain not only our experience, but as many experiences as we can about this particular event. As we begin to build that experience, we begin to build wisdom. This is what Othin sought. This is why he went and he made this bargain, this deal with the Norner sisters, that he would surrender a physical eye that he may drink from the well of Erd. He was drinking the experiences of all of existence. Super important that these experiences, he could now see particular events from a multitude of perspectives. This built wisdom. Now, Othin would go on to spend some time pondering all of this experiences that he had gained, because that's a part of the equation, is that we have to accept the experiences, build this relational matrix within the mind, that we then have this next layer of intellect, knowledge, called wisdom. So gain the experience. When we ponder it, we begin the process of connecting one knowledge stack, if you will, with another. And boom, 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 we begin to build this matrix of connections between knowledges. So things become related. And this relational knowledge is now wisdom, right? So in our lives, every day, as we go through our experiences and we have an experience to an event, think momentarily now about another perspective to that experience, right? When we begin to gain kind of a foothold in our experiences, and we start thinking about this, our relational, we're building that relational table. Isn't it nice to be able to find maybe an additional experience, i.e. a writing or someone else's stories, that provides that additional knowledge, that additional perspective, allowing us to further our wisdom, right? So the idea of more listening, less talking, allows us to gain experiences from others, right? Pull those stories in and then build our own wisdom. Because we have our experience, limited as it was, and then we begin to add other people's perspective, and we begin to build this much fuller picture. This is what Othin sought. This was the magic of what Othin sought by drinking from the well of Erd. Okay? Super important. There's a bunch of pieces there that we need to understand. First and foremost is that whenever we remember, we only remember because of the emotional filters behind our physical sensory input. So anytime we hear, touch, taste, smell, any of those, that energy, because that's what it all boils down to, right? Is the image comes into our eye converts it to energy, which then it transmits over the optic nerve, right, to the brain. Now, there's a couple pieces between those 2 points. So once it jumps on the optic nerve and it begins its broadcast to the center brain, to the brain for processing, part of that processing then is that we're going to read the energy, and the energy is going to have an emotional signature on it. As it comes in, our optic nerve then puts this energy that it's sending from it to the brain, it's going to go through a filter, and that filter is going to alter what you see, right? So if you are feeling and thinking negatively, what you see will support that. If you're thinking positively, and you're happy and everything's great, your view is going to support that, right? So we see what we feel. Now, as the optic nerve beams that signal back towards the brain, part of that brain processing is to then collectively look at an emotional signature that's now on the energy, and it's going to send a signal to the heart to now release hormones, all of its chemistry, into the bloodstream. It's going to go all around the body and eventually wind up back in the brain, where the brain is going to say, this is the chemistry composition that you just sent me. Okay, I see how it's constructed. Here's my little recipe book, which tells me if I have these chemical composition, I feel whatever. I feel happy. Okay? So I say, okay, and I look at this and I see, oh, okay, so this is all the ingredients, and it says I'm happy. Now, I'm going to assign this happy to the energy passing through the brain, which is then stored in memory. All right? Now, as it's stored in memory, you have to remember the brain is split into 3 sections. We have the front part, which is the sensory input processing. It is the physical brain. It is what we whenever we're conscious and we're in our physical form and we're conscious, this is the brain we use. It does all of our thinking. It does all of the creativity. So right and left brain, all of that is all contained in our physical brain within that front part. Beyond the physical brain, beyond the processing, beyond the momentary processing, are our memories. Our memories are a collective of altered experiences based on emotions that are stored in memory. And finally, that last piece way in the back is our spiritual core, our spiritual connection. Remember, we're spiritual beings at our core. So you boil us all down to our finite piece, and we're going to be a spiritual entity. Now, the spiritual entity that resides within the brain typically allows the physical brain and the physical thing to do its thing while you're awake and conscious. Do your thing. Process the energy, process the physical sensory input. Do your thing. Breathe, do the heartbeat, do all the automatic stuff. All of that is contained in the physical brain. The spiritual brain, on the opposite side of the spectrum here, is connected to the spiritual realm, right? So it is our spiritual being that is bonded to this physical form. So it's way here in the back. Now the connection between the 3 is what I call a plate, but you can say a baseball cap or a helm of some sort. But essentially, it's just a plate that covers 2 parts of the brain. When we're awake and alert, we have our physical sensory input and our memories. So the plate's covering it. Now, for those of us who experience maybe short-term memory loss or more memory loss, this typically is indicative that the consciousness is narrowing. So maybe it started off this big, and now it's coming down to this big. So when our physical sensory, or when our brain is conscious and our consciousness is moved forward, we're just covering the physical brain. So we're missing out on a lot of memory, right? But as we begin to expand and we enlarge our consciousness now covers our physical brain, our memories, and as we continue to grow it, it can make contact with the spiritual brain all at the same time. So we're covering our physical sensory input, our memories, and our spiritual brain all in one go, right? This allows for what we call real-time or real-time feed from our physical sensory input to the spiritual realm. So we're seeing things from an emotional state that allows us to push that information directly from our experience into the spiritual realm, into the branch of Yggdrasil, through the trunk, all the way to the well of Erd, or the wells that exist at the base of Yggdrasil. So, this expansion of consciousness, obviously, is critical because it allows for bidirectional communication between the spiritual realm. Now, the spiritual realm, for those of you who may not have heard of that, is pretty much the infinity that exists outside of the physical reality that we live in. Okay? It occupies the same space and time. They're all kind of looped together. But because the spiritual realm is not bound by all the rules and the laws that govern physical reality, the infinity of intellect that is available through the spiritual realm. This is really where we can reach out with our minds and visit the spiritual realm and gain intellect beyond our wildest imaginations. And you will do this every night as we fall asleep and we kind of let that consciousness roll back into the connection between our spiritual self and our memories now. So those two are blended to produce a connection to the spiritual realm. And in many cases, for us, because we're in our unconscious mind now, or spiritual mind, we may receive visions. We may receive visual energy from that connection that stimulates the physical brain. And again, kind of goes through the whole loop all over again. Goes through the emotional processing and then into the brain, and then you experience what you feel. Again, same kind of concept, a little less restrictive as coming through the normal sensory input because you're coming through the spiritual. So a little less emotional filtering than there is on the physical sensory input, which is almost dictated purely by this emotional state. So as you can tell, there is a lot to living, a lot to gaining for us to know and learn and love. The key here that I want you to take away today is that experiences, and not only our own, remember, we're going to take those blinders off and we're going to allow ourselves to maybe interact with other people, other forms, other intellect, other knowledge stacks. And we're going to allow that information into our processing. It's going to allow our view of this to expand, create these relationships, which then builds wisdom. So that's really what we're going to embrace today, is this kind of allowing of these other perspectives, taking our blinders off, not believing that what we see, feel, hear, touch, taste is all there is. There's so much more, right? And so we need to kind of take those blinders off and allow our minds to kind of accept these other perspectives. So that's really what today is about, is we celebrate Wothan. As we celebrate his quest for wisdom, we really embrace his quest for life's experiences. So, get out there and live. Stop being afraid, stop hiding. Get out there and live. Be you. Live, love, learn. All right, my friends, today, embrace Wothan's Day. And I look forward to seeing you again this evening when we'll talk about a particular question that you've asked. And for those of you who haven't asked a question, now is a great time to visit the website, There you can ask a question. If we make a show about it, I'll send you a free t-shirt and you can keep the shirt. No charge to you, all me, and we'll get one to you so that you can have. All right? All right, my friends. I wish you the very best Wootens Day, and we will wait with bated breath to see you again this evening for Spogsma. Love and light, my friends.